Hello. Thank you for joining AARP Michigan today for our virtual event, Starting Your Business at Age 50 Plus. This is the first of a two-part series focused on entrepreneurs. Today, we have a wonderful panel that will share insight on starting your business, the tools you need to get going. Some of you may already be entrepreneurs, so this information will also be beneficial to you too. Please share this with others because this information can be helpful to you, your family, and others in your community. It's great free information. Get your notepad ready, your iPad ready, and your cell phone ready. Wherever you take notes or take pictures to capture notes will be helpful in this presentation. Before the panel gets started, I want to share with you the resources that AARP has for you as entrepreneurs. We are a great resource and asset for you as you start your business. If you go to aarp.org, you can type in the search engine entrepreneur, and a ton of information will show up, including the work that we are doing to partner with other organizations on helping you become a successful entrepreneur. So you might ask, why is AARP interested in entrepreneurs? Well, we want to help older adults develop their entrepreneur career journey because one, it generates income, it is a boost to your financial security, and finally, it helps you and others to meet your needs and to fulfill your personal dreams. AARP supports these opportunities by connecting with others in our community, including the Small Business Association. Jeff, will you go to the first slide, please? One of our very important connections is with the public private strategies. The public private strategies will help you to start your business at age 50 plus. Next slide, please. As you can see here, your entrepreneur ideas may be big or small. You may be interested in something that requires something as big as a warehouse. You may be doing manufacturing. You may take a hobby and turn it into a business. You may be a great cook and you want to have a food truck. There are tons of opportunities for you out there, and you know what they are, but you need a business strategy to get you there. Next slide, please. So, as an entrepreneur, there are lots of resources for you. And in our partnership, we have with you starting a business with private strategies. They give you first steps. It's on our website. Steps in how to manage your business, how to sustain your day to day as you prepare for your future, including retirement. Retirement is something you will be considering too in your next entrepreneur journey opportunity. Growing your business, you need to know what resources are out there to help you get to the next level. Slide, please. So, this Small Business Resource Center for you at AARP is located at www.smallbiz.org. You can see the web address below. Take a picture of it if you've got your cell phone out, if you don't want to write it down. But all of this information is there for you in these three categories. And that is the purpose of this page. It can also be found at aarp.org. This information is good for you whether you are a Michigan resident or you are somewhere else in the country. It applies to all. Thank you. Now, today we have joining us Dr. Geneva Williams. Dr. Geneva Williams is our facilitator here. We love her. She is a leader in our Detroit, Michigan, the state and the country. We value her. She is an AARP volunteer extraordinaire. She's an author, and she is actually helping entrepreneurs to expand their opportunities in the Livernois 6 area of Detroit, Michigan, as that community is redeveloping with emerging entrepreneurs,
Yes.
long-term entrepreneurs who are opening their business. And you are leading that way. So you are the excellent person to facilitate this discussion with us today. Welcome, Dr. Geneva Williams.
Thank you, Brenda. And I am just so excited about this topic. I'm an entrepreneur too, and I started my business in my late 60s. And I'm going to tell you, I wish I had just a little bit of the information that we're going to get today. It's just so phenomenal. Thank you and AARP for doing this and for having me as part of the conversation.
Well, we appreciate you. And you will get to see Dr. Geneva's contact information at the end because she has a podcast that many should be involved in. She's on Facebook Live. I follow you. I enjoy
Thank you.
your uplifting comments and presentations for everybody. They help you whether you're an entrepreneur or not. So we really appreciate you. I am going to
Thank
step
you.
to the side and let you
All
get
right.
started with our panel.
Okay,
I look
but
forward to this.
don't go
Thank you.
far, Brenda. Thank you so much for your leadership and for bringing all of this great information to our fellow citizens in Michigan and around the country. Thank you
That's right.
so much. And again, welcome and how are you doing this afternoon? We want to start first with a poll question because we want to know who's out there in our audience. And so our question is, are you planning to start a business? And so that's yes, no, or perhaps you already have one. So let us know in the poll, and we'll announce the results shortly. And right now, we're going to get to meet our fabulous panel. So, I'm just so excited by this array of expertise that we have for you here. And we want to get started and dive in because we have a short time and a lot of information we want to bring to you. First, meet Laura Tomasi Miller, Loan Officer, Michigan Women Forward. Mark S. Lee, President and CEO, The Lee Group. Regina Ann Campbell, President and CEO, Build Institute. Sean Gray, Economic Development Specialist, Michigan District Office, the U.S. Small Business Administration. And Ray Waters, President, Detroit Development Fund. Now, this is a great panel. Isn't it wonderful to just have all of this wonderfulness, good information in one space? So the poll now is live. I'm hoping that you have, in fact, answered the poll. The poll is, we want to know, are you planning to start a business? Let's us know who's out there. And so we have some results for you. So to the question, are you planning to start a business? 64% say yes. Isn't that phenomenal? 8% say no, they're not going to. And then 28% already have. Fantastic. Thank you so much for letting us know who's out there. So again, we'll remember that the vast majority of you are planning to start a business. So it's going to be some great information. And for those of you who already have, it's always good to have some refresher tips. Okay, so what I'd like to do is to have our panelists start off by answering this question of why start a business at 50 plus? And in answering that question, panelists, would you please also tell us a little bit more about yourself and the organization you represent? So I want to start off with Laura.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Geneva. It's great to be here today. As mentioned, my name is Laura Tomasi Miller. I'm a loan officer here at Michigan Women Forward. Before I answer the first question, I'll share just briefly. Michigan Women Forward is a statewide organization. We have 3 pillars to our work, one of which is the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative, which is to advance entrepreneurs across the state. We primarily work with women and minority business owners. However, we do work with all business owners. You know, anyone can come to our services. We have microloans, we have technical assistance, and we are statewide. Would be happy to share more later, but to dive into your question, you know, starting a business, and all of the entrepreneurs I work with that are 50 and up, you bring a really unique perspective to starting a business. You have experience and skills and passions that you have refined over the years that really make you uniquely qualified compared to some of the people who are earlier in their careers. And it can really help you launch a business on a stronger footing than you might have if you were earlier in your career.
Thank you. Great. Mark?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here this morning. I appreciate the opportunity. Hi, my name is Mark Lee, President and CEO of the Lee Group, and we are a strategic marketing consulting organization headquartered here in Metro Detroit. And we focus primarily on helping small to medium-sized organizations focus on strategic planning, marketing, branding, rebranding, integrated marketing communications, and training and development. And in a specific example of training and development, we are in the throes of offering a weekly free workshop. The small business workshop is being held this month every Wednesday at 10 o'clock. It's free, it's virtual, and we're focused on issues addressing small business development. And by the way, if you want to register, you go to leegroupinnovation.com and click on the small business workshop. Our next one will be tomorrow, and it will be focused on hiring during a great resignation. Answer your question, over 50, why not? Why not? I mean, it's a very simple question, but why not start a business? And I agree with Laura tremendously, 100%. You've got the experience, you've got the idea, if you have the enthusiasm, if you have the passion, that's what you need, is start with an idea, start with the passion, write it down. But I always tell people, I get asked that question a lot, when is the right time to start a business? There's no right time to start a business. You do it when you feel the time is right for you. So I'm going to answer that question with, why not start a business after the age of 50?
Thank you. Regina, why start a business after 50? And tell us a little bit more about the Build Institute.
Definitely. Thank you for having me, Dr. Geneva. And I'm Regina Ann Campbell, President and CEO of Build Institute. We actually help businesses start up, and we support micro businesses with entrepreneurial education, access to capital. So we actually have some grants and some loans in partnership with Michigan Women Forward, as well as subject matter experts. So everyone needs somebody to talk to one-on-one about operations, financials, you name it. And so we have entrepreneur in residence in place, as well as pop-up space here and a co-working space. And so why not start a business 50 and beyond? I actually started a business at 50. I had stopped and started businesses before, and luckily we're in year 3, so I'm actually better, I'm wiser. And as already said, you have more networks. It allows for more freedom that you're used to, creativity, and engaging and being your own boss. So what Mark S. Lee said, why not start a business? So I just say go for it. There's several resources out here, and we're here for you.
Thank you, Regina. Sean, what do you think?
Hello, there we go. Hello, I'm Sean Gray with the U.S. Small Business Administration. Really glad to be here. I am the son and grandson of entrepreneurs and the nephew. About everybody in my family basically owns a small business. So most of those people started their businesses before I was born, but in their 40s or 50s. And for me, having worked with entrepreneurs for so long, when I think of entrepreneurs after 50, I think of people who really get their calling and aren't fighting against so many things and who they are and what they are good at. And so I think you have people who are really comfortable in their competencies usually, Whereas, oftentimes when I work with 20-year-olds, you see rude people starting courtesy related or hospitality related businesses, people with terrible food starting cooking related businesses. But once you get to a certain point in life, you say, look, maybe I'm not the best cook in the world, but I know how to run the front of house. Or maybe I'm being a lot better at understanding how to delegate, especially if I'm sort of at the phase of having a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. So my management skills have been tested and honed as I've stepped into parenthood. And so I'm sure we also have folks who sort of taken a lot away from that experience too. So I just think of folks as really being comfortable with their competencies when they start later. Other than that, I really excited to be here to share the resources of the U.S. Small Business Administration. We try to make sure people are aware that there is help and support out there. And the other thing that I think is important about entrepreneurs after 50 is, one thing I would say is that for the most part, I know them to be pretty coachable folks too. And so it's so important not just to have the resources out there, but to listen to those resources. And, as my grandparents would always say, a lot of times younger folks don't think fat meat is greasy. And when you're working with people who sort of get it and who understand the value of advice and experience, I think the resources that we support would be glad to see so many of the folks on this meeting coming their way, looking for mentorship or counseling.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Sean. And Ray Waters, what do you think?
Thanks, Doctor. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on the panel. It's great to be on with the rest of these smart people who know how to help entrepreneurs. I do run the Detroit Development Fund. We are a certified financial development institution, and our goal is to provide capital in the form of loans from $5,000 to $250,000 to businesses in the city of Detroit that are not able to get bank financing. And it's not because banks don't want to do this, they do. They just are highly regulated and they can't do some of the loans that we can do, Michigan Women's Forum can do, and others. So that's our niche, providing that capital to small businesses until they get to the point where they're bankable. We focus only on companies in the city of Detroit. A good portion of our focus is obviously on minority-owned businesses here in the city of Detroit. As you can see, probably from my face, I fit into the AARP group pretty well with a couple of wrinkles on my face. But I do want you to know that I also have some experience in businesses. I've owned 3 businesses, 2 were startup businesses that I grew and sold. And Mark's right, why not? And everybody has said that. The only why not I have, if you don't have the drive and you don't have the passion, don't do it. Because while it sounds kind of glamorous, it really is hard work. Long hours, away from family, all of that. But if you have that, I think you do it. There are resources that we can talk about and tell you about here that are completely available to help you do business plans and all of that. So happy to be here and thank you.
Thank you, Ray. And I want to continue on that. You brought up something about some of the hard work, some of the challenges. And I'd like our panel to kind of weigh in on some of those challenges that if you're plus 50 and thinking about starting a business and that you might face. Now, we of course have heard all of this great stuff about go for it. If you're thinking about starting a business, why not? You have experience, you have networks, you're comfortable with your skills and your competencies. But what are some of the challenges that you're likely to face if you start a business after 50?
The first challenge I think that a lot of people are going to have, quite candidly, is the fear of doing it. They're not exactly sure, where do I start, right? So think about this for a second. How many times you have this great idea? I have this great idea. I have this great idea. Okay, so what's your next step? So first fear is getting your toes in the water, so to speak. Get that first idea, write it down. And again, it goes back to what we're saying. If I have the idea, don't just talk about it. You have to do it. So yeah, we're going to talk about financial challenges and we'll talk about planning challenges. But at the end of the day, the biggest challenge is is actually doing it. Is taking the idea from concept to actually writing it down, and then ultimately developing that plan to implement it.
Okay. And that maybe kind of answers, I see that Yvonne was asking us, well, how do you get started in a business that perhaps you don't have previous knowledge of or experience in, but just might be interested in? And one of those things, Mark, I think you're saying, if you got that idea, you want to make sure you write it down and probably do some research around
Absolutely.
it. But let's continue with, what other challenges are there as well?
One other challenge I'd like to add is closing the knowledge gap. Naturally, those of us who are 50 plus, we've seen digital technologies come and change as we go, and being prepared to integrate that into the business is a necessity. Someone even asked about a website, and so I posted in the chat, we actually have a website class. We're partnering with GoDaddy. So how do you solve for that challenge of knowledge gaps? One, hiring younger employees who have access and understand how to utilize technology in the work, as well as different type of applications for efficiency for workflow. I know my team, we're everybody from baby boomers to Gen Zs, and we really welcome how they're helping us to be more efficient and really understanding a lot of how today is moving in business. And so that knowledge gap, I think, will also be something to mark as least sort of that fear. You overcome fear by bringing in people who can help you be stronger in the business.
Yes. Other challenges that the panelists would like to weigh in on?
So I'd like
Sean,
to add, I guess, entrepreneurship can be maybe more isolated than managerial or leadership experiences that people have had in the past, because it really at first often is just you. And so definitely reach out to entities like SCORE, which offers mentorship as an entity that we oversee, and then the Small Business Development Center, which offers counseling. Now, of course, mentorship and counseling are a little bit different. Mentorship is more, let's figure out how we can have a relationship, and maybe we do need to do some blue sky. Maybe we do need to hone in on what your exact idea or product or service is. And mentorship can sort of have that conversation with you. And then on the SBDC side, Small Business Development Center side, consulting is a bit more prescriptive. So they're going to want to take you directly to, well, let's get this capital, or let's figure out how to make this opportunity a real thing. And so either way, and you can do both as well, because oftentimes, even when we're working in our growth mission or on our growth project, we may need that sort of moral support or blue sky piece to check in with mentorship too. So you often will find that you need counseling and mentorship. And SCORE and the Small Business Development Center are just two ways to get that. There's also the procurement technical assistance centers for people who are counseling or doing contracting. And then there's also the Veterans Business Outreach Center as well for veterans. And then, of course, the women's business centers as well. So we offer a number of resources for people to not feel so alone in that journey.
And I know, Sean, whenever you go on the SBA site, you see all of these resources that you mentioned, and you can just find such great information. And what we also are doing, as you can see, is we're running the contact information for the individuals who are on the panel and their organizations, because as you can see, this is a lot of information, great contacts and resources. Are there any other challenges that folk want to add on to being plus 50 and starting a business? Laura?
I'd like to just jump in. I think Mark referenced it. Once you get through the, getting it down on paper and navigating all of these things, a challenge for many entrepreneurs is the funding piece. Some of your ideas might cost more than others. Some of them are, low startup costs or low barriers to entry, but accessing capital can be a challenge, or deciding how to fund your business can be a challenge. And sometimes when entrepreneurs are over 50, we might have the ability to self-fund, but if your idea is big and, involves scaling, you might need capital elsewhere. And so first of all, navigating the decision whether to, take on investors and equity investors, or, approach, loans from friends or family versus a loan from a bank or a loan fund, a CDFI like Detroit Development Fund or Michigan Women Forward, among many of our other partners across the state. figuring out the capital you need, deciding, how to pursue it, and then accessing it is, a challenge that many entrepreneurs face. But as I think we've already touched on, there are many resources out there to help you navigate that. And so hopefully it's a challenge that that is surmountable for you.
Right, right.
I could add one more, Dr. Geneva, the customer. This is important for all businesses starting and even existing businesses, is to understand your customer. We know that with COVID, customer behavior has changed. And so for us 50 plus folks, it's really important that we understand what our customers want, what they're willing to buy. Whether you're a small business or a sole proprietor, you really have to do the customer discovery piece. And again, there's the resources that are out here to help you do that, because without a customer, you don't have a business.
Mm-hmm. And I see that Monique from our audience has added the challenge of finding, really hiring someone, as she suggests, to help with the growth of your business on a regular basis, And so that's a challenge as well. Anyone want to comment on that? I know SCORE, we talked about SCORE, and that's, a resource that can help you with your business. But this whole idea of mentorship or someone to kind of guide you, hold your hand through this process. Any comments on that?
I'm going to pick on Mark S. Lee, because tomorrow the Small Business Workshop is talking exactly that on hiring. I know we'll be directing a number of our businesses to watch that, and some of our team as well, because that is quite the challenges for small business just across the country. And I think you'll get some really great information and insights there. As well as I do know that the state of Michigan has a specific fund that helps small business owners pay a portion of salary for specific employees. I can't think of what that's called, but there's some initiatives out there.
Mm-hmm. A couple of things I think too. One of the things that, and Virginia and Campbell's actually spot on. Here's the challenge. There are 10 million, there are 11 million jobs out there across the country today, but only 5 million people are actively looking for work. And that's according to a Fifth Third economist who made that presentation last week. And I say that to say that hiring is going to be a challenge. So one of the ways that you can navigate in trying to help you with growth plan and working with people, there are still plenty of resources. I encourage people to develop an advisory group. You can have an informal network of advisors. Hey, everybody knows me in Detroit for what I do. They know me from marketing, media in Detroit and things like that. But I'm not an expert on everything, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. But what I've been able to do is to surround myself with people that can help me focus on even growing my business. And so, for example, over the last 2 years, I've had people help me to navigate the pandemic. I've actually grown my business during the pandemic. How have I been able to do that? Because I've relied on a network of advisors, an informal network of advisors. I'm not afraid to pick up the phone. I'm not afraid to text them. And so we rely on each other. So rely on your network to help you grow your business and identify opportunity areas for yourself as well.
Yeah, that's an important step to take. And speaking about important steps to take, so you want to start a business. What are the most important steps to take? What do you have to do? 1, 2, 3. What are they? Ray, what do you think are some of the most important steps in starting your business?
Well, thank you, Dr. Geneva. I think that all the other panelists have hit it on the head. First of all, it's being able to find the resources to help you do it. That's a critical piece of putting it together. You can sit behind a chair all by yourself and put all these things together, but at the end of the day, you're going to need help and other people who can help you with a business plan, a critical piece, not just for potential funders, but for yourself and for others, because you really want to know. You've got to research the market, the customer. So it's finding the resources that are out there and available. And I know that AARP is going to have a whole list of those as they go forward for all of you on this call. But I think that's it. It's the resources. It's finding the right people, as Mark said, to surround you. And that can be people from the SBA, from Build Institute, to work together to try to build your business plan and your thought process, because I know full well that having done 2 startups, I'd get halfway through the project that I think I was going to start. I'd bring people on and then, well, wait a minute, think about this, think about this. You just don't have, most people in this mind don't have all the thinking process to get through what other people already know. But that would be my suggestion. Know the resources, use the resources, and build a strong business plan that you and everybody else can look at, particularly those that you're considering asking for funding.
Okay, that business plan, resources, network. Laura, add to our list of the important steps to take in starting a business.
Absolutely. I have to completely agree with Ray's comment about a business plan. I know when we're excited about a project, we want to jump right in, but really laying out that plan, as he mentioned, can help with funders. And I have to go back to funding because that's so much of what we do here at Michigan Women Forward. Once you have that in place, figuring out how you're going to pay for it to get it up and running and to scale is really important, particularly because it can be scary to spend money as we're figuring out how to make it. And so you really want to think through, after you have the plan in place, how are we going to finance it? How are we going to fund it? What does that look like? And what are the options? So I really think that those are the key pieces. And then just to, again, echo Ray, being open to feedback and preparing to pivot from the outset, because so many times we're not quite sure what we're getting into before we do it. And so, being committed to your idea and your passion and confident in that, but then also being ready to respond to the customer needs and not being too, tied to what we thought the customer might need is a really important attitude to really embody kind of at the outset.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, that's one, particularly during these times that we've been through and, post-COVID world, that ability to pivot. Mm-hmm. And I like what you said about, we always have to be prepared to do that because we don't always know what we're going to get into. Thank you. Who else wants to add to our growing list of some of the most important essential steps to take when starting a business?
So just a couple of things to just lift that has been said is the part of being open. The one thing is I don't know everything. I have a business, but as Marcus Lee said, I have consultants and others around me to advise me along the way. And to be honest with yourself in regards to your capacity in your financials. As Laura keeps saying, this funding piece is critical to a business, starting and growing. And so in order to be able to access capital, we have to be honest with ourselves about, our credit, things that we need to be able to work at, what's in our bank accounts. Oftentimes, yes, there are great programs out here that can do grants, but there's also programs and the flexibility. I know that Detroit Development Fund and Michigan Women Forward and SBA they have some flexibility, but you also sometimes need to put some skin in the game. So looking at that first year or those first 6 months about what can you put in reasonably to start your business as an investment is also something important to do. So be honest with whoever you're sitting down, or what does your financials look like? What you can take on as far as any debt. Just be honest. Find some trusting people you can be honest with.
Mm-hmm. Right. That realistic assessment of your money. Yes. Anybody else? You got a great. Yeah.
I think one thing that one of my colleagues, when I was at the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses Program, Herb Drayton, always says, start with the end in mind. And so, really being able to start the business, oftentimes when people start a business, they're about as far away from exit strategy as you can get, except maybe in their daydreams, they're maybe thinking about one day I'll be on the beach or some other sort of imaginary exit strategy. But if you can start your business with sort of the next steps or transition, or what do you want that business to be? Do you want it to be heritable? Do you want it to be sellable? Do you want it to be, what's your goal for that business model? Because, you have to have a life and an exit plan for yourself on some level. And so that's always something that I'm really passionate about, is making sure that entrepreneurship isn't something that takes your life away from you or takes you away from the lives of people who you are starting the business to support. As a kid who grew up sort of in the shop, I'm always telling people, like, listen, the time you spend with your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, whoever, is actually going to be really, really important for you emotionally and meaningful for them too. So there's only so much trading you can do on that. So to Ray's point, a business plan is a huge factor, because you're not just putting together a business plan as a tool to convince someone else to invest their capital in your business. You're investing your capital now, and your time is extremely valuable and limited. And so you have to be thoughtful about how you invest that time. You have to be convincing yourself as you go that this is the right thing to do. And so I always, people would come to me when I was at the SBDC. People would come to me after they'd sunk, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 into it, and sort of be like, basically at square one. And I'm like, how did you spend so much of your money and you're at square one? And they're just like, well, I didn't think of it as an investment. I mean, really, that's when you get down to the root of it. They didn't see their own time, their own resources as an investment, and they didn't scrutinize it like they would scrutinize an investment. And so when you're doing this, set standards for yourself that you've got to convince yourself, or something isn't going to happen. Don't just spend because it's a knee jerk or it's the next thing to do. Invest in your business just like you convince any other investor. Set those expectations, because I see people all the time who will throw 10 or 20 or 30, 40, 50K out of their retirement into their business.
Yes.
And you go back to those root assumptions about the business, the root things you'd have to convince someone else to put $40,000.
Right.
So
That's
don't
right.
invest. If you don't feel like you couldn't approach or attract another investor, then you haven't convinced yourself either. And so be very thoughtful about your funds and your time.
And Sean, I just think that, and Mark, I'll let you weigh in, but I just wanted to say that I think one of the biggest pluses to have that business plan is that it gives you clarity. That is, you can become clear on your business goals as well as your personal goals, because both matter. And so thank you for that. Mark, you want to weigh in on this, important next step, perhaps?
Yeah, just very briefly.
Yes.
The panelists are very much spot on, but don't be afraid to change. And what I mean by that, I want you to understand that this is going to get very academic for 15 seconds, so bear with me. It's still okay to do that self-inventory. Do that self-inventory and look at where your strengths and your opportunity areas are. I spent 25 plus years in corporate America. I have run major organizations in Detroit and across the country from a marketing standpoint. So, basically when I went through that exercise, I discovered what my strengths were in the corporate environment. And I took those strengths and I started meeting people. When I said I was going to start my business, and people would give me ideas. And so what I'm doing today is basically to my core mission, which is strategic marketing. Over the last 14 years, I've been able to evolve myself. So what I'm simply saying is pause for a second, look at what excites you, take that self-inventory, and then continue to write down that plan that we keep talking about that you think is going to best fit what you're looking for, but yet you're still passionate about.
Excellent. This is just such a terrific list of things that you need to do. Everything from check out those finances and being prepared to pivot to do your own strength analysis so that you can turn that into things that you're passionate about, so you can turn it into some profit. The end in mind, being very clear, having an exit strategy as you start, thinking about where you want to end up. It's just been really great, as well as, bring together a group of advisors. So these are some great things. So what we want to do is take several questions. The questions have been pouring in from our audience, and we're going to try to get to a couple of key ones. But one of the things that I know that I saw is, people are definitely asking for where to connect, how to get resources. We're going to be dropping that in the chat and et cetera on that, not our own chat, but on Facebook, et cetera. We're going to do that. And people are asking, where can they go for resources? And so we'll provide that information as well as we run it through banners. But one of the questions we have is it possible to start a business from the ground up with little or no capital? Or does it depend on the business? And Yvonne gave us that. Thank you, Yvonne.
With technology, you can start business. Yes, you can. To answer your question, yes, you can start a business from ground up. One of the differences between today and 2022 and where I was in 2008, 14 years ago when I started my business, we didn't have a whole lot of technology. And I did have to put up some resources. Now with the advent, I'm also an educator. I teach at 3 different universities across the state of Michigan. And I would tell you that many of my students are entrepreneurs. And a lot of those students are starting businesses with little or no capital. Mm-hmm. Why? Because they're leveraging this thing called what? Technology. So there is an opportunity for you to start a business from the ground up. But I'll defer to the other panelists.
Right.
Just to add on to what Marcus Lee was saying, definitely technology. There are many people who use their Facebook page to sell specific products. It's a great way to begin to gather customer feedback. Mm-hmm. There's also, you all remember, people are still doing it where they are doing trunk sales. They will, go and sell products from their trunk. There are folks who bake food and, items that are as long as they're following the college food laws, that people are doing it, making their own money that way before they go out and seek any specific formal capital or debt.
Mm-hmm. So, anybody else have thought? Yes, Sean.
So I would just say that, depending on your business model, it's really important to do your research. And so one thing that really for me it's boring for some, but it's really revelatory is the NAICS code, the North American Industrial Classification Code. Because if you think about business, and I've been sort of in this space for almost 20 years now, if you think about a difference between a wholesale bakery and a retail bakery, a wholesale bakery basically has someone that's shipping and receiving that receives the materials, they turn them into goods, and then they ship them back out. That person who does the driving may or may not be on their payroll, so that impacts their labor. Then a retail bakery has someone at a counter running a POS. They may have fees for taking credit cards. They may have to have somewhere for people to sit. People are not going to want juice or coffee. So when you think about those differences between different business models, there's going to be differences. If you want to have a baked good, that's different from having a baked good, shop or cafe. So there's all these different things to think about. You could sell almost anything or work in almost any industry you care to if you really understand the operational cost in that industry. And many things can be contracted out. So there's defense contractors working from their living room. There's all types of work opportunities for you. Just if you understand the cost and understand what you can contract out, almost invariably you can start with very little. I've seen people start. I had a client that ran a $3 million food product business that didn't have a laptop. He liked to be in the field with the cabbage and doing these other things. So he had ways of delegating and assigning work that didn't require him to have very much on hand. He started with very little, and he just never needed a laptop somehow. But
and I think, Sean, that speaks to innovation. And I think that's what the pandemic has really brought about too, that, with all these obstacles in there, we found opportunity. And we're seeing, even in the pandemic, more new businesses growing in the pandemic. And much of that is fueled by women who are in fact leading the way in starting these businesses or these sidepreneur or gig opportunities. This is fantastic. Now, I want to make sure that everyone knows that many of the links for information that you've been asking about, et cetera, are being posted on Facebook. So as you know, this session that we're going through is also streaming live on Facebook. So in other words, you can watch the replay. And in the replay, you will see a lot of those contacts and sources for information that our panelists have given us, and that Brenda Price, who'll be coming back on shortly, has given us. So there's going to be lots of ways that you can get your hands on this information. So listen, panelists, we're going to do two more things. One, We're going to drop another poll, and then I'm going to come back and ask you a question about, your very best advice that you would give to someone who is starting a business. I mean, we want this quotable advice. Your very best advice that you want to give. But first, let's do a poll. We want to find out, what do you want to learn more about to start a business? And so this not only, will, help, maybe some of our panelists can respond to some of the results that we get, but also this will help AARP in terms of future programming. So we want to know that. The poll is live, going on now. What do you want to learn more about to start a business? We have choices: building a financial plan, using social media, legal requirements, deciding on the right business idea. And we did have a couple of questions about, let me take one of those. Some of them are very specific, but one of those questions we got is, how did you decide between being an independent contractor, a sole proprietor, or an LLC? Anyone want to jump into that? Because of course, that deals with, some of the legal aspects of how you set up your organization. Ray, you got any advice to people who are trying to figure out what their legal structure should be?
Well, typically, I'm always afraid to give legal advice, but most of what we see coming through our door, companies that are looking for loans, are LLCs, because of the LLC provides additional benefits that sole proprietorships don't necessarily provide. So I would say that good 70% of the companies that in our portfolio or come to as small companies are LLCs. And there must be a reason for that. They've had legal advice and all of that. And I think you can find some of that with the resources we talked about. I know that I think that the SBA can help you through that. I know that Build and others across the state can give you at least certainly some printouts and things to look at that you can make a decision. But we see mostly LLCs coming because you can have multiple owners, and there are certain advantages to that.
Hey, Geneva, Dr. Geneva, can I
yes.
real quick? Just quickly say real quick, it's a great question, but I'm not a legal expert, and so I'm not going to chime in on what's best for you as an individual. We always have a suggest you consult with an attorney or someone with some legal advice.
And that's exactly why I think this question was really a great one, because what it does is it allows us to say to folk, here are some of the things you need to do when you're starting a business. For questions like that, you need legal advice. For how you set up your finances, you need financial advice. For how you want to handle your taxes and set up your infrastructure, all of those kinds of things are the things you have to think about as you start your business. So thank you so much for that, Lynn and others who responded. And guess what? We've got our poll results. And it looks like most people want to learn more about building a business plan. 37%, followed by, legal requirements. See, that's why we need 26% want to know about that. And then 21% on deciding the right business idea. And then about 16% of our audience want to learn more about using social media. Thank you so much, everyone, for responding to that. Now, before we go, I want to ask each of you to give us your very best advice to an entrepreneur, someone who wants to be an entrepreneur, who's starting out. Your very best advice. Mark, we're going to start with you.
You know, a couple of real quick points. One thing my father always said to me when I was growing up, and he was a successful business person here in Detroit, was always surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. Surround yourself with the best people. And he always used to tell me, he used to say, son, he's like, call me son. He says, I don't know everything. So it goes back to what we talked about earlier, is get that board of advisors and surround yourself with good people. And number two, hey, have passion and have passion. Have that idea, have passion. And lastly, have fun in the
Have
process.
fun. Okay. Thank you, Mark. Sean.
So a really important thing for me, and I try to raise my daughter with, is really just meditation and managing your anxiety level. It's very normal and natural to have some level of anxiety, but don't let that be something that stops you. Always think about, the times when you were anxious about something and it went right. That's what I always try to tell my daughter. It's like, has anything bad happened when you felt anxious? First day of school, all these firsts, or swim lessons when she couldn't swim, now she can. And I'm like, so you had all this anxiety and then something good happened. So maybe affiliate some of that or associate some of that anxiety with, you're going to do some work, we're going to learn some things, and then something good is going to come. But always keep your meditation or prayer or self-centering regimen strong, so that you don't let that anxiety stop you from doing something that could be a great thing for you and your family.
Thank you, Sean. Laura?
Actually, to build upon that, I was going to say it doesn't have to be perfect to get started. And we've talked a lot about having fun and doing the business plan and all of this stuff, but it doesn't have to be perfect on day one. And don't let, any knowledge gaps in how to build a business plan keep you from moving forward with an idea. It just doesn't have to be perfect on day one, and that's okay.
Thank you. Ray?
I concur with what everybody has said. I agree with Mark that you need to have the drive and the passion. I talked about that, because if you don't, you're going to run into some sort of a roadblock. And if you don't have the drive and passion, you're going to run away from it. If you have it, you'll dig under it, over it, around it. You'll run through it if you have to. So have to have that. Surround yourself with good people. And lastly, don't be afraid. You don't have to be afraid. If you can do all that stuff and get the right resources, you can do it. We see it every day. So don't be afraid to give it a shot and give it a try.
Thank you. And Regina?
So I'll start with, we have not because we ask not. And building on what Ray just said, there's resources out here. You have to ask for them. The one thing that I know about Michigan, from AARP to other resources that are here and beyond, there's significant resources to help people start up and grow their businesses. You have to ask for what you want. You cannot be prideful, work through the fear, ask for what you need. We are out here and want to support you with business. Small businesses are the heartbeat and essential for our country.
Thank you. Thank you. And Brenda, I think it's back over to you. Wasn't this a great conversation?
This was a wonderful conversation. I want to thank all of the panel. I know Mr. Lee has to leave, and I just want to say I really enjoyed your words of wisdom about networking. And Ray also made similar comments. You can't sit at your desk and just write this and do this alone. You need to engage others. And Mr. Lee made the comment about his business growing during the pandemic. A dear friend of mine is retired, but she continued to do a part of her business. It has grown unbelievably during the pandemic, and it was purely because of networking. She said it was all word of mouth and having those relationships over the years. So I appreciated everything that was said here today. It couldn't be more valuable. We had a lot of great questions from our audience. So audience, thank you for being fully engaged. And panel, I want to know that all of those links that you noted were dropped into the Facebook site, so people can continue to review this video. If you came in the middle or somewhere along the way, please, it will be posted. You can continue to review this. And then next session, the second training session, will be about being your own boss. And I think some of you definitely talked about that. Don't be afraid. You can be your own boss. To step out there. And Laura, I loved the fact that you said, have a little fun along the way. So panel, I want to thank you. We appreciate you. We hope to have you back. We will do this again. Thank you very much. And Dr.
Thank you
Geneva,
very much.
Yes.
Dr. Geneva, thank you very
Yes.
much.
Thank you. It's, this was a great conversation. And thank you, Brenda, for your leadership, as
Thank you.
always.
Now we're going to share
I
Dr.
know.
Geneva's contact information on the screen for all to see, because you need to stay in contact with her because she keeps it moving. And she has lots of information and ideas to share with you. So Jeff, if you can bring up Dr. Geneva's contact information. And then Dr. Geneva and I will be with you on June 6th, audience, to have some boss leaders that are entrepreneurs.
Yes. Yes, very much so. And Brenda, I just wanted to add my own small piece of advice for those of you who are starting a business, and that is to invest in yourself, to make sure that while you're, doing all you can to get your business off the ground, that you remember to take care of yourself.
All right. That is wonderful. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, panel.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.